I am a slut for vampires. I've always been a slut for vampires. I don't care what anybody says. I love vampires. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because today we're going to be talking about the 23 books that I want to read in 2023. I didn't include any new releases. Actually, some of my priority books to read next year are going to be new releases, but I just figured that for the sake of this list, I'm just going to do the books that are already out that I have been wanting to read for a long time, or I wanted to get to this year, but I just didn't have enough time. I am notoriously terrible at sticking to TBRs. I'm such a big mood reader, but I feel like since this is for the entire year of 2023, I have a bigger possibility of actually completing this TBR, since obviously there's 365 days, which probably means I'm going to have 365 different moods. I'm hoping that at least 23 of them fits these books. First book, 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. I read her A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy a couple of months ago and I really enjoyed it. I really like her writing. I'm planning on picking this up as one of my first books for 2023 because I'm actually so excited for it. I wanted to read it this year, but I just don't have enough time to get to it. This book is about 6 group of friends who decide to go on this road trip across the eastern seaboard. They're having a fun, jolly time until one night they were driving through this remote area and their RV breaks down. And they quickly realized that this was a sabotage. Somebody wanted them to break down, and as you can tell from the title, 5 survive. I'm assuming one of them is gonna die. There's a possibility that whoever wanted RV to break down is actually one of them. Book number 2, Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Before I picked up one of her books, I was never interested in anything that she wrote. Malibu Rising was like the only one that I was like, ooh, that actually sounds fun because I love surfing. But when I read both Daisy Jones and the Six and 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I actually really ended up enjoying them so much. I was so pleasantly surprised. Even if the summary of her book doesn't really sound intriguing to me, I might like it because I just like her writing style. So Carrie Soto is a character that appears very briefly in Malibu Rising, but she's also a tennis player, and this is about her comeback as a tennis player. This next book is by one of my new favorite authors, Beartown by Frederick Bachman. A Man Called Uva is my favorite book of 2022. It's written by the same author. I really love his writing style. I eventually want to read his entire backlist, but if I were to only get to one of his books in 2023, I want it to be Beartown because this seems to be a lot of people's favorites by him. This is part of a trilogy and it is set in Beartown, which is this remote hockey town. It says this is a story about a town and a game, but even more about loyalty, commitment, and the responsibilities of friendship. The people we disappoint even though we love them, and the decisions we make every day that come to define us. Next one is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. I actually don't know too much about this book. I've heard from so many people to go into this book without knowing much, and apparently that gives you the best experience, and I love going into books blind, so I'm not gonna go look it up. I did hear that it has very strong winter vibes, which is why I want to pick it up in January. And this is like a short book. It's like 200 something pages. Given that I want to read another book by Susanna Clark that's like over 1,000 pages, I figured that this would be a really great introduction to her writing to see that if we even click at all. Next one we have Jade City by Fonda Lee. This is the first book in the Greenbone Saga trilogy. Ideally, I want to read the entire trilogy in 2023, but if not, I want to at least get to the first book. I don't know why I haven't read this book yet because this sounds like it's gonna be right up my alley. The Godfather movie franchise is my favorite movie franchise of all time. The Sopranos, one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and this I've heard compared to both The Sopranos and The Godfather, but make it Asian and fantasy. So I guess maybe like Chinese triad vibe or like Yakuza. Somebody said that Fonda Lee is the new Mario Puzo. If you don't know who Mario Puzo is, he's the author of The Godfather. Okay, the next book on our list is another fantasy, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. I have not read a single Brandon Sanderson book. I feel like I can't truly call myself a fantasy lover if I haven't read Brandon Sanderson. I've had The Final Empire on my TBR for like 3-4 years now. I don't even know. It's been on my TBR for so long. Everybody says this is a great introduction to Brandon Sanderson's work, and I will trust all of these people who know better than I do. Okay. Next, This next book is kind of out of pocket, but I'm honestly so intrigued by it. The Mindfuck series by S.D. Abbey. Now I'm aware this is technically a bind up of like 5 or 6 books, but like each book is technically a novella. They're so short that the bind up is like the length of a longer novel, like a 500-600 page novel. This is a romance between a female serial killer and the FBI agent who is on her case, but he has no idea this girl that he's been seeing is the serial killer that he's been looking for. It sounds so unhinged. I heard that a lot of people read this for shits and giggles and actually end up really loving it. I want to see if I'm one of those people, because this has been compared to Criminal Minds and Dexter, and I love Criminal Minds and Dexter. Criminal Minds is like one of my comfort shows. I like rotate between Criminal Minds and Supernatural as like my 2 comfort shows. That probably says a lot about me, that I find comfort in Criminal Minds and Supernatural. I don't know, this sounds like it's gonna be fun. This next book is from an author that I have had previous experience with. I loved one of her series in the past, but I took a break from her for a while. But I think I'm ready in 2023 to get back into her stuff. It is Miss Sarah J. Maas. I'm gonna read House of, what is the first one? House of Earth and Blood. This is her first adult fantasy romance. I think it's urban fantasy. This book I feel like has gotten a lot of mixed reviews. It seems like the people who really love it really freaking love it, and the people who hate it absolutely despise it. There's really not much in between that I've seen, so I'm intrigued to see where I fall in that scale. Next we have A Love Letter to Whiskey by Candy Steiner. This one's a melancholy, sad type of romance, which is not usually my cup of tea. When I go into a romance book, I just want fun, fluffy time. I don't really love reading like super heavy, sad types of romance. Sometimes I do have some emo days where I'm like, you know what, I just want to read a sad romance. Speaking of sad books, I have the sad book, A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I am just curious to see if I'm going to be one of those people who hate it because it's so sad, or who loves it because it's so sad. And I want to see if I'm even gonna cry, because this sounds like the type of book where it's just too sad that I'm gonna be too exhausted to even cry. This is another book for whenever I'm feeling emo. The next book is another romance, Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. This book is part of the Boys of Tommen series, I believe it's called. These books have the most disgusting covers that I have ever seen. They are so gross. Oh, they're so ugly. I've been hearing about this book for like the past couple of months now. Everybody seems to love it, and a lot of people compare it to The Addicted Calloway. I love Addicted Calloway, and I'm almost done with this series. You know I'm gonna be so sad when I finish that series, and I'm gonna want something similar. I want to see if this is worth the hype and if it actually gives off Addicted Calloway vibes. The next book is a classic, and it is the only classic on this list. We have Dracula. Why am I feel like I'm saying that wrong. Dracula? It sounds like I'm saying it wrong. But Dracula by Bram Stoker. This obviously is the godfather of vampire books, and I am nothing if I am not trash for vampire stories. I am a slut for vampires. I've always been a slut for vampires. I don't care what anybody says. I love vampires, and I can't believe that I've actually never read this book. I can't believe that I have not read The Blueprint. Next we have The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This series actually has been on my list since like 2020, and I cannot believe that I read Babel before I read this, because Babel came out this year in October, and I've literally read that the first week it came out. Ideally, I want to read all 3 books, but if I only get to one of them in 2023, obviously it would be the first book. That makes no sense. We have another romance on the list, Twisted Love by Anna Huang. This is the first book in the Twisted series. I believe there's 4 books. I honestly have no idea what Twisted Love even is about. I just know that the second book is like a princess and bodyguard romance. And that's honestly the only reason why I want to read the first book, is so I can read the second book. This next book on the list is by an author that I have a very interesting relationship with. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I don't know what it is about this author. I've really been hearing about books that she's been writing since middle school. She wrote this series. I haven't read it. She wrote the Darker Shade of Magic series. I haven't read it. She wrote Gallon. I haven't read it. Those books all sound so good to me. I always find a reason to not read them, and I am determined. I want 2023 to be the year where I finally read a V. Schwab book, and I want this to be the one to break the curse. We're gonna read it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna read a V. Schwab book in 2023, and it's gonna be this one. Hold me accountable on that one. If I don't read anything else and I read that one, I'm gonna be happy. Next book is part of another book series that's been popular since I was like in middle school, freshman year of high school, and I've always found it intriguing, but I just never picked it up for some reason. The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that. This is the first book in the Raven Cycle series. I don't even remember what this one's really about. I just know that it follows like a group of boys, the Raven Boys, and this one girl. There's like ghosts involved, and it's set in like this small town. I don't know, it sounds like it's gonna be fun and whimsical and just a good time, and I feel like I'm gonna really enjoy it. I want to at least give the first book a try because honestly, FOMO. This next book is a book that I have owned, I think since 2016 when this came out. When did this book come out? January 2017. Yep, I have owned this book since January of 2017. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. Listen, I bought this book knowing nothing about it because of how pretty it was. I am nothing if not a shallow bitch when it comes to my books. If you ever wanted to step into a living dream, here's your ticket. I've been hearing really good things about this author's writing. If I have owned this book for this long, I need to at least read the first book. And I also really want to get to the Once Upon a Broken Heart duology. I think it's a duology. I don't know if it's going to be longer than that. I have to read finale before reading that so I don't get spoiled. The next one's kind of similar vibe, and it's The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I've heard nothing but great things about this book, and the writing sounds so magical and whimsical, which again are things that I absolutely love in a book, especially in a fantasy. The next book, we're now on 19, we're getting there. Oh my god, finally. I've been talking for ages. The next book is Circe by Madeline Miller. Oh my god. I read The Song of Achilles the beginning of this year and absolutely love that book. That is a 5-star read for me. There's so many things about that book that I liked. But what I liked especially is her writing. I love Madeline Miller's writing. And I feel like I'm gonna like Circe even more because she transmitted into pigs. I really want to see what she does with the story of Circe. I want to read everything that she writes, honestly. Next one. This one's another beautifully written, magical, whimsical type of book. Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. Again, one of these authors that I've been wanting to read from for a very long time. I've wanted to read Daughter of Smoke and Bone since like middle school. Recently, I've been hearing more good things about Strange the Dreamer. It just piqued my curiosity again for Laini Taylor's writing. We are now on number 21. We're in the home stretch, baby. That is so cringe. This one is part of a long series that, again, this is a series that's been haunting me for years. Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi. I want to at least start the series this year. Ideally, again, I want to finish the series. It's like a YA dystopian romance, and this sounds like a book that I would have totally been obsessed with in like middle school. When I got back into reading again in like 2020, this book came back to haunt me. Everyone was still raving about it in 2020. Everybody was still raving about it in 2021. Everybody was still raving about it in 2022. I think peer pressure has finally gotten to me that I am at a breaking point. I need to read this book series in 2023. I need to see what the hell the hype is about. Next book, book number 22. This is another YA fantasy book series that has been popular for a very long time, and I've been hearing great things. I wanted to get to this in 2022, but I just didn't have enough time. A Number in the Ashes by Saba Tahir. This has been on my radar for so long, and I just want to finally read it in 2023. I'm sorry I keep on like, I never know what to do with my hands when I'm talking. This is it. This is the last book. This is actually the book that I am the least excited to read in this entire list. A lot of people love this author. I don't want to sleep on her just because her books don't sound interesting to me, because I did that with Taylor Jenkins Reid for so long, and then I ended up finally reading her books and I was like, oh, I actually really enjoy her writing. So I want to read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This just doesn't sound like it's going to be my cup of tea, but of all of the 3 most popular books that she has, this seems to be the best candidate. First of all, it has like a 4.2 something on Goodreads, which is a very high rating. A lot of people whose opinions I trust really like this book, even if they didn't really like her other books. If you guys have read any of these books, let me know what you guys think of them. I'm curious to see, especially Book Lovers. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please do not forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment any thoughts that you have, again, about any of the books that I mentioned. And I will see you guys on the next one, which will probably be in 2023. That's crazy. That's scary. Where did time go?